My name is Naomi Jane,
I'm Michelle Voigt.
and you're watching Santa Barbara Talks with Josh Molina.
Welcome to Santa Barbara Talks with Josh Molina. It's such a pleasure today to be here with Christian Alonso, who is somebody I have admired for a number of years in this community, doing great work in the community politically. And you are I want to say new, but you've been in this role for a little bit, a little more than a year, the chair of the Santa Barbara County Democratic Central Committee. And we're going to talk about politics and the election and the party and a whole bunch of different things today. So I'm so excited to have this opportunity to talk with you. Christian, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great, Josh. Thanks for inviting me to be on the show. I'm a big fan of your show. I know you maybe don't always feel that, but because uh, uh, maybe we don't always agree on everything. But I've told you this before. Like I've seen every episode of your podcast, and I don't think that's necessarily a ringing endorsement of my mental health. And for all of you who are watching, who are just like me, who watch this, please go outside and touch grass. Please just do me a favor and get outside a little bit. It's a beautiful day in Santa Barbara. But no, I'm super happy. I'm super happy to talk with you, Josh. And I also wanted to say congrats on the news press stuff. I mean, you guys have really I've been watching some of the content that you've had on about the film festival. It's like really fun, like great, engaging content from your account. Covering some of that stuff. So congrats. And I see you're hiring folks. Like that must be really exciting.
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate it, Christian. When I do the show in my head, I'm always thinking, wonder what Christian Alonso thinks of this episode. No, but you always wonder like who's watching and all of that. So it means a lot to me. But yeah, the News Press is an amazing opportunity. And I have hired a couple of my former students who are still in college, and they've covered the film festival, and they got a lot of attention. They got noticed, and they did great work. And it's kind of, the future of the news press is you got the older guy like me, and we're going to bring in a lot of talent that is young and more connected with social media and all of that. And they're part of that team. So I appreciate you recognizing that, because I don't want to be hanging out on the red carpet, asking people for interviews. That's not my vibe, So.
Yeah. Well, and it must be so surreal for you and folks who've worked at the news press in a past life, right? Because I don't know, sometimes I wonder like who hurt you guys? And I never had seen Citizen Macaw until like a few years ago.
Yeah.
And I kind of like got the whole thing, and it was like now I understand. I understand a lot more about um you know all of that stuff and how it has impacted local journalism and how it was kind of like this canary in the coal mine for impacts to journalism throughout our country in this time period. So it's really interesting to see where you guys have been and to see you now like taking it back over, kind of like, I don't know, it feels like reclaiming it for the community, which I love to see, because we need more community-based journalism, and it really helps people understand the issues, and I'm really appreciative of the work that you all do.
Yeah, thank you. Everyone I've talked to is so excited that the news press is back, with the exception of the local media outlets, one of which I used to work with. Seems like only the media is concerned about the return of the news press, but everyone else has been so supportive, and it's been a lot of fun. And it's one of the reasons I've done a podcast recently, because I've been, working on that. So thank you. Christian, let's talk about the Dem Party. I've had a little bit of an obsession with the Dem Party over the years, more so, I think, than any reporter around, in that I find its work to be extremely important, valuable, and substantial in terms of helping candidates get elected. And I've seen many chairs over the years, and it's work. One of the things that's different about the Dems versus local Republicans is the ability to organize and get people together to help candidates. And I always say Republicans sometimes write big checks, but they don't really knock on doors. And Democrats locally, they knock on doors and they spread the word. Let's start there. Talk to me about the Santa Barbara County Democratic Party. What is it? What does it do? And why does it matter in local elections?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think we have an incredible responsibility in the community, and really, I think the role that we play kind of falls into three primary categories. So, number one, we recruit and vet candidates who reflect our values for local office. Um, Secondarily, we provide the infrastructure. So think things like the voter file, the data, the volunteers, and the coordination that many local campaigns can't build on their own. Right, campaigns come and go, but we are year round, and so we provide that core infrastructure to help campaigns be successful countywide. And this is, we are a countywide organization, right? So we're operating from Carpinteria all the way to Guadalupe in the county, Kiama as well, right? Like we're operating everywhere in the county. And third, and most importantly, we are a group of volunteers primarily who are doing the work of persuading and mobilizing voters in elections. So that's a pretty high level answer about like what we do and what our role is. But this is how we turn our democratic values into electoral victories, and then those electoral victories into community centered policy in local government.
Yeah. Can you talk about the necessity for something like this? So one of the criticisms I hear from, frankly, conservatives who've lost, right? Republicans who've lost is these are local races. We need to keep the politics out of local races where this is school board, this is city council, this is board of supervisors. These aren't party based. Why does the Dem Party have to get involved and sort of, put money into a campaign? And they just sort of tip the balance. Can you talk about that sort of criticism or discussion that definitely comes up?
Yeah, well, I think our primary goal as an organized political party is to make sure that Democrats get elected. It's like that's pretty simple, right? Like that's our job. That's what we do. We believe that it's really important that Democrats be in positions of power everywhere, from the school board all the way up to Congress, right? And I think living through one of the most extreme and corrupt federal governments of my lifetime, could not emphasize more the importance of the work that we do and in building those pipelines. And so I think that when you go to like the local level, like we actually have a situation where these offices, right, that my committee oversees elections for, and campaigns, right, and works with on these campaigns, is that they're nonpartisan, right? That these are nonpartisan offices. But what I tell people, especially today, is where are the nonpartisan issues? I think maybe in 2020 or before 2020, I would have said public health.
Mm.
But like, come on, like it is. There is actual like consequential policy debates happening at the local level, and I think when you look at year over year, our Congress is one of the least productive governing bodies in the entire United States, right? Like, where you see most of policy getting made today are in state houses and at the local level. And so I think like we view it as extremely important. That's why we get involved. I think that, we have a lot of really complex and challenging issues before us. We have budget shortfalls. We have a housing crisis. We have debates about, censorship in schools, about access to, comprehensive sex education in our schools. These are like debates that are happening. And it's really important that we have our values represented on those seats. So that's like number one, it's the importance of it. And then number two, these races are extremely challenging to run. And I would say in some cases, it's almost harder for us to win like a school board seat or a city council seat than it is to win like Congress, right? Or in one of the state races, because um, we have challenges that those races don't have, which is that it tends to be lower turnout for the down ballot races. And what I mean by that is that we have ballot drop off. And if for your viewers who maybe don't understand what that is, it is actually very common for folks to like bubble in president and then leave the rest of the ballot empty. And you'll notice when you look at the returns on elections, if you're a nerd like me, right, and you look at like the actual stuff, more people vote for president than like the stuff down, right? You'll see that those numbers don't match, and that's because people don't have the information or are not, super informed, and so they'll leave the ballot blank. So we're up against that as a challenge, right, in the mechanics of like how you run a winning campaign at the local level. And then I think the other part is that there is no party designation on the ballot for those, right? So when Salute or Monique or Greg, who are federal and state representatives, on the ballot, it says their name, what they do, and their political party, which communicates a lot to voters, right? If we would know maybe nothing else about these candidates, it communicates what they stand for. At the local level, it just says their name and what they do. And I want to give you a really like sort of emblematic example of how this sometimes can play out is we have a candidate who is running for the county superintendent of schools in the June 2nd primary election, who is anti-sex ed. She is anti-ethnic studies, and she is in support of like banning books, right, that represent like LGBTQ stories in our schools, right? So these are some pretty extreme right-wing views that this candidate holds, but on the ballot, it just says her name and then teacher under that. So the reason why we get involved in these elections, Josh, is because we really need the community to understand that is a candidate who does not share the majority of this community's values in implementing or debating stuff on a school board, right? That are, dealing with really serious issues right now related to funding and, making sure that students have the resources they need to be successful, that ICE is not, that the teachers and staff and parents know what to do if there's a raid on a school. These are the kind of things that we need our school board like focused on, and not being distracted by these like inconsequential things that most of us don't like. We don't want to debate banning books in Santa Barbara County. Like that's not like the majority of folks do not want that to be, what the school board is like using its time on. It's like they should be using their time on, making sure that our students are successful, and that the people, that folks have the resources they need to move on to college or the trades or whatever, right? Like that's what I think is a good example of why we organize and why we're backing Dr. Susan Salcido, who is a person who's very competent and very values based, and who's going to keep us focused on those important issues.
Yeah. Dr. Salcido, she came to my daughter's theater play a couple weeks ago and watched it. It was great. She's very interactive in the community. But yeah, those are all important reasons why the party would exist. Do you get any money? What about the funding thing? Sometimes I get some like old guard Republicans who are like, oh, they just tap into the state party and then they can invest all this money in their local candidates. And so it's an unfair thing. I know I go to your Labor Day barbecue once a year. I know you have other events throughout the year. How do you get your funding?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think it is widely misunderstood. And if you don't believe that I haven't watched every episode of your show or Newsmakers too, Josh, like I still am kind of like annoyed that you had Dale Francisco on here years ago, kind of whining about how we have this unfair advantage because we get so much money from the state party. He said we get hundreds of thousands of dollars, in fact, from the state party. And the truth is that we get $0 and 0 cents from the state party to, implement our campaign strategy here at the local level. We rely almost entirely on financial support from local individuals and coalition partners, both large and small. And that takes a lot of work, right? I am a volunteer. I don't get paid any money to be the leader of this party at all. I would love to, I'm waiting on my paycheck in the mail, right? From the DNC or whatever, right? That people think. But I'm a volunteer. I do call time, just like a lot of elected officials do, to raise money. And I had a conversation the other day where someone was like, "I can't give more than $3." And she did. She gave $3, and I was like, "This all goes towards, our mission here locally." And it's a lot of work and care from these extremely generous individuals and like-minded folks who are supporting this work. And I'm appreciative of every single person who donates to our local effort. And in a lot of cases, they're not just donating, they're coming out and knocking doors with us too, and doing phone banks, or helping us with event logistics and that kind of stuff, and coalition building. And so, if you're a person out there who watches the show and you're a Democrat and you thought we were getting a bunch of money, like, I'm telling you, we don't. And I encourage you to go to sbdems.org and get involved, whether as a volunteer or if you want to give us, like $5 a month, would be huge. We're doing a drive right now to build up our monthly recurring donations so that we can sustain this work year round. Because we got a lot of expenses this year. It's a big election year. We opened 2 offices, one in North County and one in South County, to support our candidates. And we've staffed up. And, I worry a lot about, making sure we have the resources we need to be successful.
Yeah. I tell Republicans who get all conspiracy theory like about the Dems to learn from them, because it's very impressive, the on the ground organization the Dems do. And even if you are not a Democrat, just as a critical thinking brain, you need to sort of recognize that, wow, what they do is really impactful, effective, because you have an incredible field campaign for your candidates. And Republicans need to spend less time, or I shall say 0 time, watching Fox or One American News or these online outlets, and then thinking that energy somehow transfers to Santa Barbara, because, a very small percentage of it does it. It does. The rest is really about who's knocking on your door and who's going to talk to you and make a connection. And that's where the Republicans are woefully lacking, is making those connections locally. Until they get any kind of crew to actually put in the work, the Dems clearly win. And that's not a endorsement of, any individual, but it's just pure common sense. If you work harder, you get better results. And that's one thing the Dem Party definitely does. Hey,
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting that you say that, Josh, because I actually met Bobby McGinnis for the first time last year. And for those of you who don't know, she's my counterpart. She's the chair of the Santa Barbara County Republican Party. And it's funny that you say that, she's not, that they're not doing that, or they don't understand. Because when I was knocking doors last year in a special election for Bealton, right, which we won that election, we elected Carla Meade to join David Silva, the mayor, and Alicia Lewis as a Democratic majority on that council, which is really important for us to make sure that we secured that majority. And I met Bobby McGinnis for the first time when she was knocking doors in Bealton, right? So I think that for them, there's that group, they understand the importance of it, right? And they understand their leadership, but I think it's sort of like a mobilization problem where they're not they're not recruiting volunteers, or they don't have a lot of folks who are willing to join them in the work. But I just want to say, not that Bobby and I agree on anything, except for that, this is important work, and that we're willing to go door to door. So one thing I will say, and then, you kind of have it's always kind of bugged me that you have like the peanut gallery, like Justin Shores and these other people who come on your show and like criticize Bobby, but I don't really like, where is Justin Shores? Like, he doesn't even live here anymore. Is he like knocking doors for candidates? No, he just writes, like a mean blog post for the Santa Barbara Current every once in a while. So
Shores, I will say that, and one of my things is I give people space in their space to, have common dialogue. Um, I think you've elevated the game very much with the party. When you see Bobby McGinnis knocking on the door for their candidate, it means they are aware, but you're right. The, we're the people, how do you get those people out there to actually match your numbers? But it is very impressive, and it makes a difference in these close local elections. As I have covered on the Santa Barbara City Council, Wendy Santa Maria being an example of that, very much makes a difference. Hey, I want to talk to you about the 5th District Santa Barbara County Supervisors race, because the party has endorsed Ricardo Valencia for this seat. I heard him talk at the Labor Day. I am hopeful to get together with him to get him on this show soon. That's kind of significant. It's kind of interesting, right? For a lot of reasons. He's a guy of the community, local, but there's 3 people in this race, but sort of the one part of this that so far I have been most interested in is that you have Steve Lavanino's chief of staff running for the seat. And Corey Bantolin is, I don't know if you call him the heir apparent, or that was the thought that they had. And so this is what people don't like about politics sometimes, is the perception that a seat is being handed over to somebody who's in line. It's kind of interesting, right? That the party is behind Valencia and is going to take on the incumbent's chief of staff. And I will say, to Corey's credit, he does have a little crossover appeal among some Dems. So it's an interesting contest. Can you talk to me about this race, why it matters, and why Ricardo is your endorsed candidate?
yeah, of course. I didn't know Ricardo very well before last year. Obviously, he's, been on the school board and we've endorsed him a couple of times. I've gotten to know Ricardo really well over the last year or so. And I have to say, we're so fortunate that he had the courage to take on this campaign. So as you said, he grew up in Guadalupe and Santa Maria, is the son of immigrant parents. He got into UC Berkeley and then got a master's degree in teaching from Tufts University. And then he and his wife, Lisa, came back to Santa Maria to teach in the same school system that brought them up. So, and then he went on to serve his community on the school board. And I think the thing about Ricardo that I just love so much is that he really understands the issues from the perspective of a local and a teacher and a public servant who's just deeply concerned about what's happening in our country right now. And Ricardo and I have spoken about the fear and the concern that he has for his students when one of them don't show up for school. That's just the stuff that he sees in the community every day, just being a trusted, resource for youth, right, and parents. That's the kind of stuff that he sees and that he's concerned about, and that he wants. It's motivating him to run, right? He wants to do it for his community, and it's why he's the only candidate in this race, Josh, who's really been outspoken in his opposition to the assaults that have been happening to our neighborhoods by ICE. He's the only one, and he wants safety and accountability. And it's also, this perspective that informs his agenda on affordability. He wants to build more housing in the community. He wants to, make sure that we can expand access to childcare. Even in, Santa Maria, Guadalupe, I think, people kind of think of it as like, oh, it's not as expensive as South County. It's like crazy down here. And don't get me wrong, it's crazy down here. But like, I was just in Guadalupe yesterday talking to voters with, Devin Wardlow joined me, and my friend Eloisa Chavez, who's on our committee and works for Planned Parenthood. They drove up with me to knock doors in Ricardo's district, and in Guadalupe, we heard from folks who were saying, the cost of living, even in Guadalupe is crazy, right? It's just the housing costs, the cost of rent, and groceries, and just there's neglect, and that's why Ricardo's running. He wants to invest in our future, um, and bring that perspective to the board. If he's elected, he would be the only Latino on the board of supervisors, from a majority Latino district, uh, at a time where that community is under attack by the federal government, citizens and non-citizens alike. So we're really proud to stand behind Ricardo because he's got the right experience and the courage to work with the board to enact our shared values into policy.
Yeah. Wow, you're right. He's the only Latino he would be the only Latino on the board. Let's go a little deeper on this, Christian. What do you think of this whole dynamic here with Corey and Steve, and sort of this, prior to the two other candidates who got in the race, this sort of perception that, he would be the heir apparent, he would transfer the seat to him. I mean, do you know Corey? I mean, what do you think about sort of that disruption of the plan, so to speak?
I don't know Corey, Josh. And what I do know though is that there hasn't been, I think, attention to the issues that the district cares about. Especially like in the campaign so far. And I think you'd be surprised to hear that actually, like in this election, there's three candidates. So Ricardo, Corey, and also Maribel Aguilera Hernandez, who's running as well, and she's on the Santa Maria City Council. We just had the first financial disclosures become public in this race, and what they showed kind of shocked me a little bit, which showed that like Maribel is like way in the lead in fundraising, and she's got support from Republican aligned interests, like oil and developers, and some of the agricultural interests, like the growers in North County, that I thought would kind of be more in Corey's, right? Because I think that like a lot of those folks have supported Steve over the years. Maybe I'm incorrect on that. It's just kind of my my general knowledge of it. That we haven't had a very competitive race in the district in quite some time. So, but it's interesting because what I see is the people who are out knocking doors right now are Maribel, and she's got the biggest war chest right now to implement the campaign. And so, we're not taking anything for granted. We got a three-way race. We have to run, on what our agenda is, which is affordability and community safety, and addressing the budget shortfall, right, in a way that protects jobs and in our values, and that's kind of what we're focused on. I don't really know all of the candidates super well outside of Ricardo, but what I can say is that he's been the one who's been the most outspoken on these issues, and I think it's sort of telling when Maribel and the Santa Maria City Council finally put out a resolution in support of immigrants. It took them over a year of hundreds of kidnappings and multiple murders by ICE in Minneapolis that we all saw, for them to do anything, even though the community had been begging them in Santa Maria, and youth-led organization had been begging them to take action or to at least do something, right? Like this resolution. It took them more than a year to do that. And then, Gloria Soto, who's the only Democrat on the Santa Maria City Council, she was the sole vote against that resolution because of how weak and just not meeting the moment that it was. And it's sort of just, cynically to have, Maribel kind of take a victory lap on putting it forward, this do nothing resolution when she's running for office is kind of, I think it's emblematic of who's actually, it's a contrast among the candidates of who's actually willing to stand with the community on this issue and others that of importance, and who's going to be silent unless it benefits them personally.
Yeah. So it sounds like Maribel is the bigger concern right now in terms of the Dems, not to underestimate any of the other candidates, certainly from a fundraising perspective. And in those 3-person races, you kind of just don't know how they're going to turn out. Yeah, there's so much of the Santa Maria politics that I'm looking forward to better understanding very quickly, leading up to this campaign, because there's coverage there, but there definitely could be better coverage, more coverage of these issues. Um, Ricardo Valencia, I saw him speak at the Labor Day event, and what I really liked about him, was, and again, not endorsing anybody, but just commenting as a person here, like, he's fiery, right? Like, he speaks from the heart. Yeah, he's not, like, at least at that time, worried about being like, let me speak to one person, or he's just talking. And that's really refreshing in politics. And that comes across, with voters, like, hey, authenticity, that really matters for sure. And candidates who talk about what's happening with ICE, I think people want to see people take stands, because regardless of your views or your party affiliation or where you're at on immigration, what we are seeing, no, I don't see how anyone can agree that that's right. It's horrible, what ICE is doing in these communities. And so, that's sort of if you're silent now on what's happening, people are going to remember that, but definitely, when it comes to politics and, the future. So yeah, that's interesting. Let's say you change that seat, right? Let's say that your candidate Valencia gets elected. What does that mean for policy on the Board of Supervisors?
Yeah, I mean, it's huge, Josh, in terms of securing a really sound majority. I think that, like, what I've heard is, like, we already have the majority, right? We have the majority, but it's a fragile majority. We cannot afford to lose one vote on the County Board of Supervisors for really important issues. And I think we saw that play out a little bit in the Sable oil debate, right? And the ongoing sort of controversy over this, oil company that wants to restart this pipeline that trashed our coast in 2015, and that we're very right to be skeptical of. I think in that debate, right, we saw like a 2-2 split because we had one recusal in the initial vote on renewing those permits. And I don't want to get into, like, it's complex, and, like, look, it's like you get Nick on here instead of me to talk about it. It seems like he's like the expert, right, on on the long saga of that debate. But I think that, like, that was just one example that really solidified for me that we need more than just a 1-vote majority on that board. And I think it is a long way to 2028. Yeah, and you said, I'm the newest chair. I feel like I've been chair for like 100 years, Josh, because, like, the stuff that has happened in the last year alone, like, I feel like I've aged like 50 years, and I feel like a lot of your viewers feel just like I do, which is that, like, it has just come fast and heavy, and, like, the cuts to essential services and stuff. It's like we have not seen anything yet in terms of the pain and suffering that this federal government has caused, and will continue to cause. So it's a long way to 2028, and I think it is just so important that we get a values-based majority who's going to help us weather the storm, because there's stuff that you and I have not even dreamed of yet that this administration intends to do that's going to have a local impact here, whether it be in the immigration raids, whether it be in continued loss of funding from the federal government, and attacks on healthcare. Like, I just think at the local level, it is our last line of defense, and we desperately need folks committed, like Laura and Roy and Joan, to throwing sand in the gears of that and making sure that we can weather the storm through 2028, when we can hopefully get change at the federal level as well.
Yeah. Let's shift gears a little bit to Santa Barbara, area that I'm more familiar with in terms of my journalistic coverage. The party recently endorsed Kristen Sneddon for mayor. There are a couple other Dems who had applied to be endorsed. Eric Friedman, Santa Barbara City Council member, and Wendy Sims Moten, former Santa Barbara Unified School District board member. Sneddon received the endorsement, and I think it was pretty unanimous, I think, in support of her. What can you talk about Sneddon? Eric Friedman is also a Democrat. They disagree on a couple of key issues, but what was it about Sneddon that earned the party's support?
Yeah, thanks for the question, and I want to get to that in just a sec, Josh. But I do want to say, too, that like we are a countywide organization, so I think a lot of the time, like so much of the focus, inevitably, I say this sometimes, so we have more divas per capita in South County than they do in North County, and we
David
are.
Silva represents North County really well in that regard. Right?
Yeah, I think he would appreciate you saying that. But I think that we are really focused not just in Santa Barbara, but countywide. And I think if you look at Lompoc, for example, we have a council member. There is a council member on that board who is currently has a court date, right, and is under indictment for embezzlement. From the city. I mean, it's absurd. Like that's what's happening on that city council. And then you have a mayor who has gone viral for his like racist harassment of street vendors in Lompoc, right? And I think that when we talk about this, I really do want to talk directly to the activists and the folks who I've had the great fortune and opportunity to work with in Lompoc, in the Valley, and all throughout our county, that we're really focused on you too. And we desperately want to get good people in office in Lompoc too, because we understand that they're hurt. I mean, Lompoc is hurting right now. They're just like there's chaos and in it just like distraction. I mean, the stuff that council is focused on is so distracting from the real issues that impact people's lives. And we need to get good representatives countywide, not just in the city of Santa Barbara. But I want to answer your question about Kristen. I think Councilmember Sneddon really, had broad support with our committee through our process. And it really boiled down to three things. One is her experience. So our committee was really impressed with the breadth and depth of her knowledge on the issues facing the city. And also, her principled leadership in upholding our values on that council. I was joking with Kristen that we're going to have to like implement like a word limit on some of the answers to to our questionnaire, because it was so long, and she just like and it was great to just a demonstration of how deeply she's thought through some of the issues. So I think that really stood out. I think number two is its experience, but it's also results. She's helped to move forward policy over the last 8 years that has increased affordable housing production, has created stronger tenant protections in the city. I'm a renter in the city. It's something that I care about because it directly impacts me and my husband. She's invested in renewable energy, and she's put up mutual aid for immigrant families who've been impacted by recent ICE raids, right? When this stuff all kind of kicked off locally, or really in a big way with the Carpinteria raid, right? They moved, the Santa Barbara City Council moved in reaction, following the lead of the Carpinteria City Council, which I'm so proud of, how they responded and how they continue to respond to that. And so, there's been a lot of results, and I think we have to build on those results. And it's like it's knowing the issues, and it's also showing that you can get things done. And third, and I think importantly, she really demonstrated to us that she's willing to put the movement above herself. And here's what I mean by that. A lot of people watching the mayoral election have expressed their concerns to me and to our committee about the potential of vote splitting if too many Democrats get in the race. I think that's kind of one of the narratives that's out there about the mayoral race already. There's a lot of anxiety out there about, splitting the vote. And we asked all of the candidates in our interview process what they would do if they didn't get the endorsement. And she was the only one who said, I don't want to split the vote, and I wouldn't. And I think that distinction really mattered. I think it's really those three things, right? Experience, results, and a willingness to put the movement above yourself. Why we're really excited to work with Kristen to build on those successes, to put forward people-friendly policy, and to protect our community as much as we can from the abuses and the corruption of this federal government.
Yeah. Well said. Let me ask you, I guess this will be one of the tough questions today. Eric Friedman, okay? There's a little bit of history with Eric and the party. He's a Dem, right? He's a classic Dem in many ways. Used to work for Salud. He votes Dem, like, probably nationally 100% of the time, the way you'd want him to. What's the problem with Eric Friedman when it comes to like sort of this contest? Like, is it just that Kristen's a little more aligned? What can you say about Eric Friedman as a candidate in this race?
I think what I would say is that, I'm appreciative of Eric's public service. I like Eric personally. He's anyone who's ever met Eric, he's a really nice guy. I think one of the things that I'm more concerned about, Josh, is that we currently have a mayor in this city who does not represent the majority of the people and some of the concerns that we have. I think that people are oftentimes shocked to hear that this guy is like the mayor, right? And there's, how did this happen, right? How did this happen that this? And I'll give you just one really clear example, because I think that when it comes to the issues, there's a lot of room for debate about how we approach rent control, right? And the really crushing cost of living that's just crushing regular working people in our city. There's a lot of room for debate on like how we approach that issue. There's a lot of room, and Eric has kind of voted more along the lines of Randy in that way. There's a lot of room for debate on like what we do with State Street, right? And I think you and I have talked about this before too. It's just like, I don't know, open it or close it or whatever, right? It's like, aren't there bigger issues? And I think they're bigger. It's really important. Don't get me wrong. I think it all speaks to like what kind of a city we want to be and how we're investing and orienting ourselves for the future, for economic development and taking care of people. But like, there's a lot of room for debate on what to do with State Street. And I think you've seen Eric kind of, look more like Randy in that way too. But where I think that there's not a lot of room for debate is on the issue of protecting our community, doing everything within our power from what this federal government is doing to our immigrant neighbors and to citizens in our city, right? You saw the stuff with the pepper spray of this woman, who there's The Independent, I think, interviewed her, right? But this is like an assault on our community that is happening on the streets of our community. And when other people, other leaders saw that happening, Eric, Kristen, Mike, and Wendy, when they saw that happening, and Oscar and Megan, they all voted to put money behind helping folks, right? Putting money behind immigrant legal defense, giving that money out to mutual aid organizations that are on the ground helping people that are, in some cases, like they're losing the primary income earner of their household, right? So they're being thrown into complete disarray and chaos, and they don't know where their next meal is going to come from, right, for their kids. This mutual aid investment was so important and just not even nearly close to enough. And the only person who voted against that, putting that mutual aid was our mayor. So I think, like, it's really important that we get different leadership uh, at the mayor's office. We have decided to endorse Kristen Sneddon, and we're going to encourage everyone to line up with us. I think that there's room for debate on these issues, but on some of the stuff that's really important to our community and where people are looking for leadership right now, that's just got to be number one. It's not about any one individual or personalities. It's about the mission. And that's what we're focused on, is to make sure that we get leadership that reflects the values and priorities of our city.
Yeah, that is well said. And I've said this on Jerry's show, and I have said it to Randy as well, is he's got one too many pockets of the community that are unhappy with him, which is different than 4 years ago. And he seems to want to kind of slow everything down, right? And kind of calm it and say, we don't have control over this. And we are city, and we're potholes, and we're infrastructure. And, sort of on paper to some degree, that is true in some eras, but it's not true in this era when we have so much happening that is affecting the everyday lives of constituents. And I think he's a little bit, he's misreading the room if he doesn't think that that's not going to impact him on election day, because it's not just, one group. It's not just the State Street people. It's multiple, it's rent control and the rent freeze and rent stabilization, and it's ICE. It's so it'd be interesting to see, if he's going to step it up a little bit from a political strategy perspective, or what you see is what you get, and sort of this is it. And because there's definitely energy behind change. There's not energy around keeping things the same. And if you're running, you need to be aware of that, regardless of what you think of things. It's just sort of smart. Hey,
I think, let me put it this way too for you, Josh. I mean, it's like, you talk to a lot of people. I talk to a lot of people in our community, and I'm not talking to a ton of folks who think that the answer to masked thugs being deployed in our neighborhoods, I hear it, right? I hear it right in downtown Santa Barbara, and I hear sirens in the morning in ways that I did not used to, right? Where these folks are doing their operations, these thugs, right? Who won't even identify themselves. I don't think that a lot of people here are excited to hear the answer, oh, there's nothing we can do.
Right.
And I just think we need urgency, and we need leadership on this issue, because it's not just some theoretical threat. It is a real threat that's happening, and it's putting people in danger, citizens and non-citizens alike in our community. And I think people want to see leadership and urgency.
Yeah, and Devin Wardlow had a good opinion piece sort of countering that perspective with, we need to do whatever we can, even if it doesn't fix it, we need to do something. So let's transition there. And I want to talk to you. I want to ask you a couple questions about you in just a few minutes, but other city council contests, you've got Megan Harmon, who is termed out. So you've got an open district there. Obviously Kristen Sneddon's district and Friedman, they're termed out. So it's a big year, right? There's a lot of change that's going to come to the council. Can you talk just a little bit about the other contests and sort of who the party is endorsing, and sort of how you're feeling going into the election? Now, for Santa Barbara, the official filing deadline is not until August, and then it's November. That's a little different than the county. But what's at stake with these other candidates, and who are you backing?
Yeah, so we haven't backed anybody yet. These are all open seats, as you mentioned. So 4, 5, and 6 are districts in the city are all open. All the incumbents are termed out in those seats. So it is a really big year, and it's going to be really important, that we start organizing very soon. I think we're 80 days out from the June primary, Josh. It's like people will start voting in that election in 80 days, less than 80 days actually from today. So I think that's where we really, with vote by mail, are also on a constrained timeline, right? Because people can actually start voting in October. for the city council in
Yeah.
Santa Barbara. And so we're not that far away. We're like 9 months away, right? Which is crazy. It's like mid-February already. So we're gonna endorse in these races. And for those of you who are watching, who know someone, maybe it's you, who want to run, we are not mind readers. We can't just magically know, who's interested in running. So let us know. If you go to sbdems.org/run, or just go to sbdems.org, you'll find it. We implemented this website for you to raise your hand and let us know that you're interested, because we want you to participate in our process. The process includes filling out a questionnaire. It's long. It's a long one. But it's really good for helping orient you to the city issues that voters are going to be asking you about, that activists are going to be wanting to ask you about, and that our coalition partners are going to want to see like signals on where you stand on these issues. So the questionnaire, it starts with the questionnaire. We'll send it to you. If you let us know you're interested in running, and you're a Democrat, you will get a questionnaire from us. And then you do an interview before the committee, where we'll ask you questions. It's not like a secret thing. Just because we get so many candidates who come before us, you get 15 minutes. That's it. Here's my advice to every candidate: don't talk the whole time. Let us ask questions. If you filibuster for 15 minutes, and we don't get to ask you a single question, it's just it doesn't help us learn more about you outside of your questionnaire.
Yeah.
So you'll come do the candidate interview, and then the committee will deliberate. And our committee is made up of folks from all throughout the county. Some are elected, some are appointed. We have club representatives. We have, these great grassroots clubs that are operating and organizing in all of our communities, from, Lompoc and Santa Maria in the Valley to, the Santa Barbara Young Democrats, and the Dem Women of Santa Barbara County, and the Democratic Service Club here in South County. Those members are on our board too. And they want to hear from you. So participate in our process. And I think that, if you don't want to participate, or you wait till the end of filing and then, cry foul after the fact, I think that we have to organize early. It's how we're successful. If we waited until August to endorse in these races, the truth is we would probably not actually get to the endorsement until September, and then ballots go out in October. So you'd have about 4 weeks to build a coalition to win. It's not enough time. It's just, I don't think anyone, look at with Kamala Harris taking over in 2024. Is there anyone that thinks, hey, it would have been great if we had less time to run a campaign? I don't think that that's a strategy to win. And so we're not really interested in changing our process because there's too much at stake. But I am interested in making sure that people know what our process is earlier, and making sure that they can participate. So we've implemented a couple of different things. We're working with an organization called Contest Every Race, where folks are getting phone calls and emails from this organization right now to help us identify folks that are interested in running, so we can get them into the pipeline early. I'm working with a organization that I just met with recently that's working to prepare people to be on school boards. Super important, right? And it's we need good people on our school boards as well to navigate the challenges happening with funding, especially, and all the other issues, that related to our kids and our parents and our teachers. And so I think instead of changing our process, which has been super successful in getting good people elected, what we're interested in doing is making sure that people know. And I think if you learn anything from this, it's tell your friends too. I know people who watch this podcast are super involved. If you know someone who's interested, tell them to go to sbdems.org and get involved.
All right, here's a question I'm going to ask you, which is a dumb question, but I'm going to ask it for our conservative viewers who are going to be judging you on this issue. Your shirt, women up, right? I think I know what it means. What does it mean? Why do you wear that shirt? Why is that important to you?
Oh, I love this shirt. I love this shirt. It's actually a queer and trans designer in Los Angeles who made this shirt. But I don't know, I really love it. I'm a feminist, Josh, and I think that you know, there is an assault happening in our country on women with the Supreme Court decision that overturned Roe versus Wade. I had the absolute honor to get to work at Planned Parenthood from 2022 until 2024. And I got to work with, Jenna Tosh and Luz Reyes Martin and Eloisa Chavez and Miriam Shaw and all of my amazing community organizers who were working under me while I was the director of public affairs there. And I have to say, we really have to recommit ourselves to solving the healthcare crisis that has been caused by the erosion of abortion rights in our country. And I think that I want to see more men involved in that fight as well. It's we need everyone to care about this, because if you know people who women and people who can become pregnant are under enormous duress to have to travel, in some cases thousands of miles, to receive basic health care, and this administration has just completely obliterated federal funding. It's a crisis, and you saw our speaker pro tem Monique Limon and the governor just this week do an emergency $90 million allocation of funds to keep health centers like Planned Parenthood in our communities open to provide these life-saving and essential health care. And so I know it's like a long way from a t-shirt to that answer, but I think it's super important, Josh, that if you're not involved with us, go get involved with Planned Parenthood Central Coast Action Fund. Go support their work, Jenna and Luce and Eloisa and all these amazing folks that are doing this work every day, providing this life-saving healthcare every day in our community. We desperately need to recommit ourselves. And I think, I don't know, it's like you saw the first partner of the governor kind of take the press to task. I don't know if you saw that this week, but Jennifer Seibel Newsom, she kind of took over the press conference for a minute and was like, why are you all asking questions not related to this crisis? Mm-hmm. And she got some flack from the press to say, well, we get to ask the governor whatever questions we want to ask. But I do think that she had a interesting point. It was we have all of these activists and these leaders, these amazing women who are sounding the alarm and who've been, every day from before Roe versus Wade was overturned to now, advocating for this. And you had the press asking about the Munich conference or whatever. And so I don't know. I think, what do you think about the criticism that she inserted herself into that press conference? And
well, I didn't actually watch that. I didn't hear about it, but in general, I defend journalists, right, in these situations, because we do have a fixation, on sort of the stories that aren't necessarily the focus of those in power. And sometimes that's good, sometimes it's not. It really depends. But I think I defend generally the ability of the journalist to ask whatever question they want, as long as, they have a purpose for the benefit of the public good. And sometimes, yes, I'm guilty of that. I've been accused by many people in the party, high up in the party, of focusing too much on personalities and that sort of thing. But also, it works both ways. Sometimes we do need to be put in check. It's like, oh, reminder here, So I think it's a healthy situation where you have that back and forth checks and balance. But perfect transition, Christian, is let's talk a little bit about you, if you don't mind. And I'll be a little vulnerable here, is over the years, I have felt like I don't really know you that well. And there's a little bit of a guard, at least around me, that you have put up, or I've felt that. Um, and so, you and I have never even had a cup of coffee together, right? I don't think, we've talked here and there. And so I'm sort of interested in you and your story, and you're obviously very impressive, and you're part of this younger generation that is doing amazing things in the community. And so I'm sort of curious as to knowing more about your story and how you got here and why. There are a lot of people doing great things in the world. You choose to be in local politics. So can you just talk about like your background and how you got to Santa Barbara, like where you came from, your upbringing, to the degree you feel comfortable?
Sure. And I guess I just want to say I'm sorry. Like I never wanted you to feel like I didn't want to talk to you. I think like I'm a good soldier, Josh, and for a long time I felt like um me talking about party stuff instead of our elected leader, the chair, is like out of respect for them to say like, hey, you should really, if you want to talk about like party stuff, you should talk to Darcel, you should talk to Gail, instead of me.
Yeah.
Because I don't have anything like more to add or to offer. And I think it's really important that we kind of speak with a unified voice on some stuff. So it's never been that I didn't want to do your podcast. Like I said, I'm a big fan. And so maybe too big, because I need to go outside and touch grass every once in a while too. But yeah, so I grew up in Reno, Nevada. Both of my father's parents, my abuelos, they immigrated to the U.S. in like the 60s. So, I grew up with immigrants is my abuelos, my grandparents. They only spoke Spanish at home. And so my father actually and his brothers had to take English as a second language in elementary school in Reno, because they only spoke Spanish in the home. My dad never taught us Spanish. So I never grew up like speaking, and I still, all of my friends who speak Spanish make fun of me because my Spanish is terrible, but I try and I practice, and I'm really committed to learning. But I came to Santa Barbara in 2010 to go to school here. So I came like, 16 years ago. I can't freaking believe that I've been in this community that long. I've almost been here longer than I ever lived in Reno, which is the only other place that I've lived. So, but when I was there at school, I cut my teeth on Santa Barbara politics by doing volunteer campaign work in Isla Vista for Congresswoman Lois Capps and for Supervisor Doreen Farr. If you really want to like age myself, right, in terms of like where my origins in Santa Barbara politics came from. We were fighting this guy named Steve Pappas, who was crying election fraud of the students, the vote, and so that's what really motivated me to get involved and to be, you know, uh, involved there. But I think also probably my interest in politics like precedes that by a long time. My dad is not only a Republican, but he's an attorney and also a lobbyist in the state of Nevada. He's a gaming attorney, so he does like it's very niche law, right? He does like licensing for casinos and that kind of stuff. It's interesting work, and he lobbies the state legislature on behalf of some of those clients. And so I kind of grew up in and around Carson City. My dad, had very close personal relationships with lawmakers in Nevada, and I got to know folks in like the longtime Senate Majority Leader Bill Raggio and other folks like that were close personal friends of my dad's, and so I've had kind of a front row seat to politics for a long time. It's been interesting. I'm more like my dad than I care to admit, I guess. But like, yeah. So I met the love of my life at UCSB. Sorry, go ahead.
In a parallel universe, or is there a Republican Christian Alonso walking around somewhere?
No, I hope not. I really hope not. And I always tell people this, but like I'm a gay vegan Democrat who lives in Southern California, making my family really proud in Reno. But I love them so much, and it's funny because like people in Nevada, they're always complaining about like all these Californians are moving, to Reno and to Nevada, and they're ruining it. And I was like, you all let me know when Nevada's good and ruined, and maybe I'll move back home. But yeah, so I when I was going to UCSB, I met the love of my life, Clayton, and we got married last year, actually after being together for over a decade. We live in Santa Barbara with our senior dog Zuko. He's a big Rottweiler. He's sitting here right next to me right now, but he's an old guy now. I got him in Isla Vista. You know, it was a really smart decision to make when I was lonely in college to get a 100-pound dog, knowing that I was going to be like a renter for however long if I'm still a renter. And so you know, Clayton and I just celebrated our first uh year anniversary, our first marriage anniversary. And did you ever do the thing with like the paper or like any of
Put,
the traditional like stuff for, you know, it's
put
like
an,
the huh?
like put an ad, or what do you mean?
No, like there's like a gift that you give and there's like themes for every like year anniversary, you know,
Oh,
it's like one year is like wood or like I guess the first year is paper and we were like, I'm probably not going to do that. But then it like occurred to me that um one of the first gifts that Clayton ever gave me was a little like box. It was like this little box. Clayton was like, when I met Clayton, Clayton was like 20. I was 22 at UCSB. I was like kind of thinking I was going to leave Santa Barbara after I graduated, and I ended up staying, and the rest is history. But Clayton got me this little box and wrote on little pieces of paper all the reasons why Clayton loved me, put it in the thing and gave it to me, and then was like so like sad about like I don't have any money to get you a nice gift.
mhm.
Um, but I got you this, and I was like, I couldn't believe, like I literally like was like crying because I was like, this is the nicest thing anyone has ever given me in my
Right.
life, and how lucky I feel that you know, I got to marry that person. And for our anniversary, I found the box. I was like tearing apart
Oh,
our house because I knew I had it, but I hadn't seen it in years, and so we went out to dinner and we like opened the box and like we took the little pieces of paper out, and I don't know. I feel so fortunate that like, and why I love this community so much, Josh, is because it's given me so much personally. And you know, Clayton is a big part of that. We would have never met if, you know, if it weren't for Santa Barbara. So
yeah. That's great. Yeah, no, that the paper comment flew over my head. I had kids right shortly after marriage, so from that point on, it was like kids, you know,
yeah.
anniversary. Like, wait, when is that? That's coming up. You know, that's saying too much about me. But yeah, that's great. That's a wonderful story for sure. How did you? Your father's a Republican, right?
Everybody in my entire and both sides of my family in Reno are Republicans.
Yeah. And that's not to say Republicans cannot be supportive of LGBTQ plus individuals, right? It's not to say that, but generally speaking, you don't associate them with that. How did you get your find your values? Sounds like you're close with your father. I don't know. I mean, can you talk to some degree, and maybe there's someone watching who can learn from this? Um, how did you navigate that? How did your father come to accept it, your parents, and sort of, where did you get your values? Because I always tend to think sons are kind of like their dads, at least ones that, whether they want to be or not, they inherit their traits, so can you just talk a little bit about where you got your values from and how they embraced you?
Yeah, I think I got my values from both of my parents, really. You know, it's kind of funny because politics is, you know, it's like you wouldn't think that we have a lot in common from a values perspective, but I learned, you know, to treat people with respect and kindness. You know, I learned a lot of that from my mom. My mom is like just a very generous, kind person. Um, and um, you know, I learned like those values, and I kind of like, for me, it was always like I gravitated more towards, especially during the Obama years when I became like more politically conscious, in high school and beyond. Uh, I always felt that like it was a better match for what my parents had taught me, right? Which is to treat people with kindness and respect and to help people that need a hand, right? And not to like judge them or, you know, uh, pull up the ladder after, you know, after success, but to help, you know, other people, find success and safety and stability as well. And so it's kind of interesting in that way, is that like I really embodied the lessons my parents taught me, but I implemented them differently in terms of politics. And it's funny because like we don't agree on a lot, and people are always making fun of Clayton, and my stepmom are always making fun of us because my dad and I yell at each other a lot. We're like, we're like Spanish. So, it's kind of, he's always like, why do you talk to your father like that? And I was like, I literally learned from the best. Like every dinner I ever went to growing up, like you were yelling at your parents, they were yelling at you. Like we're just got loud, opinionated people in my family. And like, I learned from the best. But it's sort of interesting that way. And I think, we all really do have a lot more in common than I think we give ourselves credit for sometimes. And, the polarization that's happened on the issues. I think I have deeply held values that I'm not going to sacrifice, but I do wonder how we can reach out to each other and find a better way forward than the current situation, because it's not really helping anyone except for a very small group of wealthy people, and the rest of us are just kind of left with difficult lives to navigate, housing costs and all this stuff. And I think people are unhappy and isolated. And, there's a lot of truth to that, like conservative anxiety about like the current state of affairs, especially for like young men. You hear like a lot of like about this and like the anxieties for folks. And I don't know. I think that we have a lot more in common than we give ourselves credit for. And I think it's just like, how do we find the way to communicate with each other to find a pathway forward is something I'm super interested in, but like at the same time, like safeguarding our values and making sure that we're not going to compromise on some of the big issues. And I think like for LGBTQ people to navigate, it's just like you just really have to find confidence and love for yourself. That was always really challenging for me. I think a lot of ways I'm lucky that my family are all hypocrites, because we grew up kind of like hearing like skepticism and religion, right, about LGBTQ people. I don't think I actually ever met like a real life like gay person as a kid growing up in Reno, because there wasn't a lot of visibility. And when I knew that I was gay, I knew I was gay when I was like 14 years old, like for real. And the fear and the anxiety and the stuff, it really impacted my life. And then I can just tell you that, if you're a person watching who's going through that yourself, that you gotta love yourself first before you can, accept love from other people. And everyone's gonna roast me because that's a RuPaul quote, but it's the truth. How the hell are you gonna if you can't love yourself, how the hell is anyone gonna how the hell can anyone else love you? So I think that you take that to heart, and you also just kind of like move forward confidently in who you are, and that you're worthy of love and respect and dignity. And I think that one of the reasons why I'm so rooted in the movement is that I really do just have this reverence for the gay liberation movement and that history that is made up of trans and gay people and, gender nonconforming folks from time immemorial, because we've always been here, that fought and died so that we could live and fight. And I think that it's that sort of reverence for that sacrifice, and not just for the gay liberation movement, but for the civil rights movement and for the women's movement, that motivates it really inspires me, Josh. And it's one of the reasons why I tell people it was like, I either be the chair of the Santa Barbara County Democratic Party or I run screaming into the ocean. Those were like my two options, like to like for us to like, get involved and help lead us through these challenging times. And I just feel, really, really grateful that I have had the fortune to learn from so many amazing activists, from Dracula Mahal to Darcel Elliott, to Gail Teaton Landis, to, all of these wonderful people who have I stand on their shoulders, and I've learned so much from them on how to do this and how to be effective. And I continue to learn. And I know I learned from you all in the press as well, the media. And I think it's a really wonderful community that we are so fortunate to live in, and it's worth fighting for.
Yeah. Well, that's great, Christian. I think that's a perfect way to wrap up. I appreciate you sharing that part of your story because it's very inspirational as well. And so thank you. I appreciate your time talking about everything that's going on with politics, the party, what's at stake, your personal story. And I hope to have that cup of coffee with you with no cameras around at some point. And yeah, let's do this again down the road and sort of like debrief the election. So I'm gonna reach
I'd
out.
love to. I'd love
Yeah.
to. And we should do it in person. I would love to do it in person. It's easier to do it this way, but but yeah, cup of coffee, Josh, you know where to find me.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we'll definitely do that. Thanks a lot, Christian. Have a great day.
See you.
Thanks.